Hi everyone, JB back again with episode 28 of my Did You Ever Wonder series. This one's, as I had promised before, I wanted to talk about the year 1839 in the area and will involve some of our Cherokee history. By the way, this picture I used is purported to be Fayetteville in the 1840s, but I can't associate it with any time in the city's history at all. That one big building there looks more like the old Van Winkle Hotel, which would probably put it in the 1870s or 80s. But anyway, that's what it's supposed to be. It's a nice little drawing. You can see the Muskogee Gap there on the way to Oklahoma and the town. This is from Mount Sequoia, whoever drew it. It's a nice drawing. I don't know if has anything to do with history. Anyway, okay, so 1839 was not such a good year. On January 13th, we had a Trail of Tears killing here in Fayetteville itself on the square. That summer, June the 15th, we had a Wright family out in Cane Hill were murdered, slaughtered. And then exactly 1 week later, we had the Cherokee Assassinations when purported to be agents of Principal Chief John Ross of the National Party attacked and killed the leaders of the Treaty Party, which people were believed did set in motion the Trail of Tears. So I don't want to get too much of that. It's not I don't want to get in that schism there myself. Okay, so on Sunday, January 13th, 1839, approximately 1,100 Cherokee people and their slaves came directly through Fayetteville, led by Captain John. I used to think it was Benji, but John Bench. I saw something the other day where his name he was also known as Bench. So I'm assuming that's John Bench then. And they camped one group, what A.W. Harrington called the Desperados, which probably meant the poor people, camped down by Fayetteville High School down below there. You know, there's a park there now, a couple of plaques and so forth. And the wealthier people camped out nearer to what used to be the old fairgrounds, which is at Razorback Road and MLK, or Highway 62 out there. That's where the fairgrounds used to be when I was a kid. Okay, so on Sunday, January 13th, 1839, that group came in town, and some of the guys from what Harrington called the Desperado group wanted some whiskey. And there's a family named Wallace had a store, a grocery, which is, you remember me talking before, that's who sold alcohol in the old days, was the grocers. And it was located on the west side of the square. And from old plat maps and stuff and so forth, I think it's the most likely location of the grocery where this incident occurred is right about here. Remember the old Camel Bell building? Right about the entrance there or right next to it. Right in that area is almost, I think, real likely place for where the Wallace grocery was, where this killing occurred. Anyway, so the Wallace family, they opened their grocery even though it was a Sunday. And whoops, I need to tell some more story there before I move on. So what happened is that everybody got in there, and of course they started getting drunk and raising hell. And one of the Cherokee, a man named Nelson Orr, took offense that apparently some white guy said something rude about one of the Cherokee women, and Nelson Orr started fighting him, and he was getting the better of the guy. And Willis Wallace, the older brother running the grocery, his little brother Riley jumped in to try to save the other guy, and then Nelson was getting the better of him, and then Willis Wallace came over the counter with a big equivalent of a Bowie knife and stabbed him. He didn't die right away. It took a couple of days to die, but he did die. Well, anyway, in the aftermath, there was so much anger and stuff that the group of the guys camped out by Fayetteville High, word got back there, and they were going to burn the town down. But a Captain Moody, lucky for everybody, he was able to calm everyone down and keep the town from being burned down by the traveling Cherokee. So anyway, here's the Trail of Tears back to the University of Arkansas, but it's quite accurate historically. It's done in 2000. And there's an older one, you probably may have seen it there in this little park there. So this is right near the park, and this is in the little park area. See those three monoliths in the back, supposed to be a man, woman, and child on the Trail of Tears. And then there's a block with a plaque in it. The women's soccer field is over to the right, the University of Arkansas. And that plaque was put in there by the Children of the American Colonists, an offshoot of Daughters of American Colonists in 1958. Anyway, so the what happened then was that in May of 1839, Willis Wallace went on trial for murder, and he was acquitted. Well, A.W. Arrington was here at the time. He was a lawyer, and he wrote about this stuff later. And that the acquittal did not set well with him at all. He was very unhappy about that. And then just separate to all these things, separate from what I'm telling you here, then Willis Wallace and Riley Wallace, tried to stop a card game. Seems to me in the epitome of hypocrisy on a Sunday. They were stopping a card game, and Willis ended up shooting a guy to death and stabbing another one almost to death. But Dr. Pollard, I mentioned, remember in the one about the old city hospital, either him or a relative of his saved the other guy from dying. And so there's Willis Wallace with another murder charge. And he got off on both of them, which has sent A.W. Arrington into a frenzy of unhappiness and anger. And I can't remember exactly, a year or so later, Riley Wallace ran into the guy that survived the stabbing and shot him dead. So eventually the Wallace boys moved south. My friend Sean Treat gave me some information. Apparently they went down to the Van Buren area. What I all knew about them was they all ended up down in Texas eventually. They got the heck out of Dodge. But before they left, well, I'll get to that with the Wright murder families when I talk about that, which is now. On June the 5th, after all that stuff happened, you got everybody worked up. And in the summertime, some unknown assailants came to this family in Cane Hill and knocked on the door and slaughtered them all. And there's a thing from the Arkansas Gazette early on the night of the 15th. Instant means the same month. That's an old way of doing that. It says about Wright's family. With these men demanded he come in, and they killed Wright. They killed him and 4 of his children. His wife and a daughter managed to escape out the back and got away from whoever killed them. Okay, so this led up to the next episode, and of course, while this is going on, I'll get to that in a minute. We have the Cherokee Assassinations occurred in there too in that summer. So the place has just worked into a frenzy, and A.W. Arrington is just out of his mind because he thinks Willis Wallace got away with double murder, which he may have, and also he felt that the guys that going to get convicted of, if you will, of the Wright murders, he thought they were innocent too. So he was in a frenzy, and he was actually they had what they call the non-shooting Arrington-Wallace War. So sometime in the July-August timeframe of 1839, excuse me, Arrington and some guys were trying to duke it out with Wallace and some of his people. And so they got up on the square, and Arrington was where the courthouse was in that time, in the center of the square, where the old post office is now. Wallace was holed up in his place. Somehow Wallace had got a hold of a cannon, and that kept everybody at bay, and he escaped and nothing happened. But they call that the Arrington-Wallace War. It was a non-shooting war. But in the meantime, these 4 men had been charged with Wright family murders. There's their names: Richmond, Barnes, Turner, and Bailey. And the Cane Hill, I think the official name was the Cane Hill Regulating Company, I believe. They were called the Regulators. There's 36 men. It seems, I think I'm not going too far in saying there was kind of vigilante justice here. I don't know how guilty or not, but there was kind of a vigilante feel about this whole thing. They got these 3 guys and gave them some sort of a trial, and they hung 3 of them on July 29th, which sent again, Arrington just into a frenzy. And the 4th guy, Bailey, had gotten away, and they caught him and hung him in December of 39. And anyway, so Mark Bean was the leading guy out there in the Cane Hill area, biggest slave owner and all that kind of stuff too. And he and the Regulators captured these guys and convicted them after what I would describe as, I don't want to go too far with this sub, it seemed like a kangaroo court to me. Anyway, if you want to read a lot more about this stuff in detail, see the 1997-98 flashback articles by my friend and mentor, David Malone. He covers it really well, and he got a lot of the Gazette material in there. Okay, so later on, as I think I've talked about it before, Arrington wrote under the name of Charles Summerfield. This is the same book. One's a New York printing, one's a Philadelphia printing. And he told about these stories, but he told it in the wildest way. It's a combination, I said before, creative nonfiction and the dime novel. So there's truth in there, but you have to be real careful with it. Okay, so on June 22nd, it was 1 week after the Wright murder, so everybody stirred up, is when we had the Cherokee assassinations. And the three men who were killed were, and this is in the order there, Elias Boudinot on the left, John Ridge in the middle, and his father, Major Ridge. And Stan Wadey, oftentimes instead of Stan, was warned by someone, and he survived the attack on himself. Obviously, John Ridge was Major Ridge's son. Stan and Elias were nephews, so they were, what's that make them, cousins of John Ridge? Anyway, so the upshot of that is that in the aftermath, that's when Sarah Ridge, the widow of John Ridge, and Sophia Sawyer, and they all came to Fayetteville for safety. I don't know if we were that safe, but it was safer than over there. And so Sarah brought all her kids with her, including John Rollin Ridge, who I've talked about before, who's considered the first Native American novelist. And she brought with her, of course, Sophia Sawyer, who was their teacher in Georgia and their teacher in the Indian Territory, and the teacher here in Fayetteville, who opened up her Fayetteville Female Seminary, at first mostly with Cherokee young women, but with everybody eventually, or white women and Cherokee women, I should say. And then one of the guys who didn't come here directly, he went back east for a while, is the son of Elias Boudinot. His also named Elias Cornelius Boudinot, but E.C. Boudinot came back to Fayetteville. They called him Booty. He was extremely popular, although I have to say, he and James R. Pettigrew, I think I mentioned, had a newspaper, the Arkansan, and they were very pro-slavery, very anti-abolitionist. You have to just see that. But Boudinot was a really popular person here in town, and he defended Cherokee rights a lot. He was very popular here in town. He stayed here. He eventually moved to Fort Smith and passed away down there. Anyway, so that I'm out of breath trying to get all that stuff in there. I wanted to get as much of that as I could. And that was episode 28 of Did You Ever Wonder? 1839, a little bit of our Cherokee history here in town. It's from the time of Sarah Ridge's arrival until Booty moved to Fort Smith and then passed away about that's close to a 40-year span. We had a strong Cherokee history here, if you will, influence. And even today we still do. But like A.M. Wilson, other guys were attorneys for the Cherokee, that sort of thing here in town. Anyway, so next episode will be about the Far West Seminary, the Ozark Institute, and the Arkansas College. That'll be episode 29. And thanks again for hanging with me, and I'll see you later. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.